Rain hammered Savannah's cobblestones when a German shepherd stepped from the shadows. One ear scarred, eyes burning like embers, he pressed against a former Marine's leg and refused to let him stay. Across the waterfront, behind a rusted warehouse door, voices were already planning a Thursday that would erase him forever. Under a live oak, a man in a long raincoat watched and waited. No one saw the dog coming, no one believed he would return, but he remembered the hand that fed him, and what loyalty costs when danger has a name. What happens next will test courage, expose betrayal, and prove that second chances can arrive on four paws in the rain. Before we begin, where are you watching from? Drop your country in the comments, and if you believe no person or animal should be left alone in the storm, hit subscribe now. This story might just restore your faith in small miracles. Then the narrative slides into description of Savannah. Here's how I'd rewrite the next section with pacing and punctuation cleaned. A wet hush drifted over Savannah the way a veil drifts over a bride, soft, deliberate, not asking permission. The river breathed its briny breath at the edge of the historic district, and the cobblestones along River Street glistened like old coins in a shallow dish. Spanish moss hung in long silver skeins from the live oaks. Gas lamps pulled amber light into the drizzle so that each small circle of brightness felt like a door to another, quieter century. Cole Harris stepped out of dockside coffee with the unshowy grace of a man who had learned how to move through storms. 38, tall, long-muscled from miles of running he no longer bragged about, shoulders squared by memory of a rifle strap, a sun-worn field jacket, work boots broken into silence. His face carried the geography of old seasons, a faint pale line near the jaw where shrapnel once said hello, wind-browned skin, gray-green eyes that noticed everything and volunteered little. The first thing people saw was steadiness. The second, if they paid attention, was quiet, not the quiet of indifference, the quiet of a man who had learned the cost of speaking too soon. Cole's shoulders made that small uptick, the kind old friends use when they stumble across proof the past hasn't declared bankruptcy. The gesture was simple, almost throwaway, but beneath it was the weight of years, the kind of weight that had a way of climbing out of its box when you least expected it. Harris, Caroline said, her voice steady, but the corner of her mouth tugged toward memory. You look like you still owe me a sprint at the track. He almost smiled. Almost. I owe you several, he admitted, stepping out into the night. The rain was no longer a backdrop, it was a participant. It stood up taller, as if the sky had been waiting for this reunion just as much as they had. Droplets tapped the hood, hissed against hot pavement, and carried with them the smell of wet rubber, gasoline, and the faintest trace of pine. The world around them blurred, edges softened by water and distance, as though time itself wanted to keep the moment private. Rex dropped to the pavement with a deliberate thud, not the clumsy fall of a tired dog, but a soldier's landing. He paused, his weight shifting into a waiting stance, as though listening for an order only he could hear. Then, as naturally as breath, he moved to Cole's left knee, shoulders squared, eyes up, ears forward, a silent declaration of loyalty. Caroline's gaze caught the movement. It flicked to the shepherd, then lingered, holding longer than etiquette or casual curiosity required. He yours? She asked, but her tone wasn't idle, it was clinical, measuring, as if she were inspecting a weapon brought unannounced into her home. Circumstantial custody, Cole replied. His voice carried the tired humor of a man who'd given up explaining things that didn't have explanations. He chose me an hour ago. Her eyes narrowed, reading past the words to the bond already forming in front of her. Not an amateur, she murmured at last, her tone low, as though they were both appraisers considering the worth of a rare piece. You bring a trained dog to my house. I'm going to ask for 2 favors and a resume. Rex, Cole said, trying the name again, letting it roll slower this time, heavier. The dog's ear tipped back toward him, jaw set in that listening way that suggested he understood more than he should. Caroline's eyebrows lifted, not high, not dramatic, just enough to betray surprise that a command had found its target so quickly. All right, Harris, her voice shifted, turning official around the edges. The friend tucked neatly behind the badge. Start at the part where the weather had a reason to bother you tonight. Cole exhaled, his breath ghosting in the damp air, and for the first time in a long time, he wondered if the storm outside was any less dangerous than the one he was about to let out of his chest. A navy suit that had seen its share of ribbon cuttings and ribbon scars. A white shirt with a frayed collar no one could see, and an expression that remembered storms. In his inner pocket, weight and purpose shared a deliberate space. The silver recorder that had once turned rumor into a weapon, quiet but devastating. Downstairs in the vestibule, where drafts collect, Deputy Caroline Reed leaned against cool marble with the kind of posture that told anxious people to take their time. She wore plain clothes tonight, a charcoal-field jacket, boots that could chase or stand, hair pulled back like a plan, and the steady eyes of someone who had spent the last 24 hours teaching her phone how to behave. Beside her, Rex took up as little space as a German shepherd possibly could and still be a fact. He lay sphinx-like, forepaws parallel, chin a respectful inch from the floor, amber eyes fixed on the elevator doors with a sentinel's patience. The security guard, Alvarez, according to his nameplate, and experience, according to his mustache, had tried a joke about no pets. Caroline answered with the kind of deadpan that puts paperwork to bed. Service support animal, she said, then slid him a look that made him agree with himself. Upstairs, the boardroom was a cathedral of polished wood. A long table of live oak, its varnish deep enough to drown in, anchored the room. The walls were lined with portraits of restored houses, porches reborn, cornices forgiven, hanging like testimonials from the past. The tall windows made a gray rectangle of the fading day. Around the table sat the weather. Harold Pennington, board chair, a banker turned benefactor with immaculate white hair that had never learned humility. Handsome in that Savannah way that mixed gentility with habit, his tie was the color of a well-bred bruise, and his patience could be measured in teaspoons. To his right, Dr. Syra Kulkarni, preservation architect, small, precise, hair coiled at the nape in severe geometry, eyes that missed Lil and forgave nothing without structural proof. 2 seats down, Louise Marrow, an accountant dressed like a quiet verdict. Square glasses, lips that pressed themselves into a line whenever numbers told jokes. On the far side, Thomas Greer, young, from Seabright Capital. His charcoal suit a touch too shiny, his jaw cautious, knuckles pale as his fingers held a pen the way some men hold prayer. At the head of the table, Mark Dalton stood like the table had been built to need him. Mid-40s, wearing success like a tailored confession. Brown hair coaxed just enough to suggest he remembered youth and could afford the memory. Blue eyes with a trapped laugh at the corner, jawline trying not to be an ad. He placed his fingertips lightly on the wood as though to bless it. At his shoulder, Elaine Brooks held a slim binder and a slimmer smile. She wore charcoal like a second language, hair in a smooth knot, watch small and severe, posture of a woman who knew where commas go in sentences built to hold liability in their hands. When Cole took his seat halfway down the table, Mark's smile deployed itself with the ease of old sunlight. "Cole," he said, warm as porch light. "Thanks for making time. I know we moved up a bit. Keeps momentum nice and tight." Elaine slid glossy packets across the wood. Transition framework, continuity plan, advisory role scope, the kind of titles that replace nouns with intentions. Murmurs rose, chairs creaked. Harold cleared his throat with a sound that cost money to make. Mark began the opera of reassurance. "We're here because growth demands new lanes. We've done remarkable work under Cole's stewardship. No one disputes that." Heads nodded. They always did. "And now," Mark continued, "a structure that streamlines day-to-day can position us for long-term wins." Cole moves into an elevated advisory seat, vision where vision belongs, while operations pass to a team with the bandwidth the next phase requires. Elaine's voice threaded in, cool and correct. "Activation of the emergency continuity clause is a mechanism our bylaws anticipate. There is no allegation, there is alignment. Investors appreciate clarity." The temperature of the room dropped to the clinical cool of polite endings. Thomas cleared his throat, practicing confidence. "Seabright is enthusiastic about." He stopped, thought better, then tried again. "About the stability this brings." Syra's pen made a single dot on her pad, then stilled. Cole listened the way a man listens to a doctor explain the necessary cruelty of a procedure he never agreed to schedule. His eyes stayed on the packets, on Elaine's thumbs pressing lightly at the corners, as if holding down a map that wanted to curl. Inside his chest, something older than pride and younger than anger straightened its coat. He let Mark's sentences lay their rugs, Best practice, continuity, brand equity. He let Harold raise his fountain pen like a minor sacrament. Let Louise slide a resolution forward carrying in its grammar the small death of a name on a door. Let the pitying eyes glance his way. Then Cole moved. No speech, no throat clearing, just a quiet reach into his inner pocket. He set the small scuffed recorder on the live oak table. It looked like nothing, a toy at the wrong table. Then he pressed play. Static walked the room like a nervous usher. A chair scraped, paper shuffled, then, voices. The first, a man's, easy and certain, carrying the amused thread power sometimes can't keep to itself. After Thursday, he's out. It's already lined up. Silence dropped like a hawk passing the sun. Thomas gasped like a boy meeting tides. Elaine's mouth made a shape with no vowel in it. Before denial could get dressed, a second voice arrived, disciplined, precise, consonants placed with tweezers. We'll activate the emergency clause. Operational control will transfer. He won't be a problem. The words lay on the table with the oily calm of a signature already dry. Mark's smile vanished as if edited off his face. This is out of context, he said too quickly. That could be anyone, Elaine cut in, tone sharp as a scalpel. Dr. Syra Kulkarni made a second dot. Context would help you here, she said mildly, the way certain verdicts are delivered at altitude. Victorini Bear, counsel, leaned forward 1 inch. In lawyer, that meant 50 yards. These are the voices of 2 officers of record plotting a specific outcome under color of an emergency clause. Even if you argue theater, the optics are not survivable. Louise, steady as ordnance, polished her glasses. I moved to suspend both officers pending an immediate vote. Mark pivoted to anger. This is a setup, Cole. You're making enemies you don't want. I have enough, Cole answered. His voice filled the room, not by volume, but by age. I didn't come to argue. I came to lay down proof. The votes followed, swift, undeniable. Hands rose, even Harold's after a private war. Suspension, investigation, removal. Mark and Elaine walked out under portraits of houses that had been broken and learned respect for repairs. Cole stayed seated. He didn't look at the recorder. He looked at the others, and let the thank you be silent.
If this tale moved you, if you felt the tension, the heartbreak, and the triumph, please support our channel by hitting the like button and subscribing. Your support means the world to us and helps us bring more thrilling, emotional, and inspiring stories your way. Leave a comment below and let us know what you think. Do you believe dogs have an extraordinary sixth sense? Share your thoughts and personal stories with us. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.